All right, we're back on the Zephyr, that is. Got a couple things situated with the steering column, so we're going to talk about that. Finally found a part that fits the front rack and pinion, and then came up with some other stuff to make the steering column right down there. So today we're going to attempt to get the steering in the Zephyr. More to come right after this. The story about the Lincoln Zephyr steering column. We had put some stuff in place, and I had covered a little bit about what we're doing under the car, but I was able to source a couple parts. So coming down here into the rack and pinion, it's pretty dark, but you can see I found the right spline. So Speedway Motors had it. It's a 9/16 by whatever spline. And I was a little bit concerned because this piece coming out had like a interesting flat spot and a divot. But the splines on this set right in, and the set screw lands on the flat spot. So it's close, but it's not gonna rub. Coming through and looking at that support, that's very close to the exhaust manifold, but I'm gonna run it for the time being. Very close to the oil filter as well. That's the shorty oil filter, but no heat really comes off of that per se, not as much as the exhaust. So as long as nothing's rubbing and nothing's melting, it's gonna work. So I'll get a light and set up over there once we get in the car. But there's one major component for the steering that we're missing. I gotta say, in our move, I'm not a most professional packer, like I didn't label anything. And somewhere in all these boxes, I'm hoping the steering wheel is. I got Zephyr parts up there. Like, I went through all this yesterday in just frustration, and there's no steering wheel. I went back home, I looked in Jamie's Jeep. There's a Jeep steering wheel. I got stuff piled in the Bug. Unless maybe somebody's got better eyes on it than me. I see the Bug steering wheel. And seriously, I'm not doing this just for dramatic effect. How the heck do you lose a prized 37 Lincoln steering wheel? Because steering wheel Chris was gonna restore it, but I never brought it to him. I can't believe it. So I'm gonna dig through all this a little bit later this afternoon. Once I'm a bit more clear-headed, I'm trying to share the news. So this is pretty cool. The way that the steering column comes under the dash, I was having a little issue because it was botched up before and there was nothing there. So I wanted a real clean, simple look. Not super street rod, but definitely homemade. A lot of people said, well, you don't want the steering shaft exposed because what if something gets twisted in the steering knuckle or whatever? I just don't see that happening. I really don't. I don't mind seeing this under the dashboard with a couple U-joints. That's cool to me. But the way I came up with this is pretty interesting. So I have my steering shaft. That's from Speedway. I guess it's pretty much 3/4 solid round. Some of these, especially around that oil filter, I'm using the double D, it's called. Yes, that's a 3/4 solid. And then on this end, you can see how it has the flat spots. I don't know if one's better than the other. These are all just pieces, parts that I've had left from other projects. But because I wanted this very simple attachment under the dashboard, and it is kind of a micro stub in that it comes right out of the dashboard like this and turns. So we're gonna build a bracket off of this. But these are plumbing parts. I thought that that was neat. So I went around shopping on Amazon, and I found these cool little needle bearings. So these are 3/4 inch ID and whatever OD, I'm not sure. They fit that perfectly. So I ordered a set of 4 of them just in case I get dirt or mess one up, right? 2 of these spread out. You know, that's a pretty substantial support for the steering wheel. This is where it gets interesting. That's a piece of threaded water pipe, and these are couplers, and I just happened to machine them a little bit to accept that bearing perfectly. So it's a natural spreader because of the way I worked it out. So that's a pretty good amount of support from bearing to bearing. It's 3.5 inches. So, you know, you're gonna have a lot of force potentially on that steering wheel. So to make it look a little smoother, I took this other large coupler, you know, it had threads on both ends, spun that down on the belt sander, and those are just gonna get tacked in place. So to service it, I learned that word from Brent, Half-Ass Customs. This piece may need to be serviced. Bearings will come out. Once I get an end for the steering wheel, you know, there will be a spacer wherever here to keep that off of that. That goes in, right? So right now it's fouling on that, but I'll have a spacer to keep that off. Then there'll be a spacer here, wherever the steering wheel is. It may be way out here, I'm not sure. We don't know because we don't have a steering wheel yet. Yeah, interesting. All right, so let's see. Because we're not using a chop top or anything on this car, our seats can be pretty tall. So it will have cushion, but these Zephyrs, I mean, they came with the deluxe, like couch style seat in them. We don't have that, so. You can see, for me, being 6'2", sitting in this thing. Oh, look at that, 3/4 inch. That's perfect. So it feels like a red just sitting here. I don't want the steering column over more. We're gonna have to cut that off. So that's over a good 2 inches. Even as much as that was welded before, it was easy to cut off, but now I'm straight down where I was. I'm gonna bring this out a little bit more. I don't want to mess with this door. It's pushing down into the car. I'm gonna clear up the center hole on this wheel a little bit. It's a close slip. Perfect. Coming back around. Now let's see. Wheel is wheeling. Yeah, I bet right about there. And once you get the bigger wheel, see, there's nothing. A lot of times with these custom cars, the wheel will be down your knee. So I think that is going to be perfect. And look at here, quick estimation with a marker. Yeah, I bet we could bring this up. I don't know, let's get into a little design. Let's get into a little, because we're thinking about this, right? It's like Art Deco. And you're gonna see this, and we're gonna wanna kind of cover the U-joint, at least visually from the top. Because again, we're not going for hot rod or street rod. We're going for elegance. This is where the story really starts. So what I was thinking was this thing, it's gonna be somewhere in here, but I want, you know, a triangulated gusset. Maybe something that looked really wide and cool. Yeah, you know, real technical. I want to hit off of that plate. I want to come out to here. We'll whittle this down real quick. Going parallel with that. I want that to set here, right? So we can adjust that as we're coming in. But this dashboard is tilted up. And I don't think we want that in our mount. So I may put this on the vise before we're all said and done. Just put the big wrench on it and twist this. But just for discussion at this time, that's our center. And I think maybe we want something that kind of rounds it out. It just looks a little elegant, sort of. And this will be a large flat plate. We fold that over. Let's fold that, trace it, repeat. I mean, we could put a bend in it too, give it some dimension. I don't know, anything goes. We could do something like this, or like this. Kind of like that. And we could land into that. And then it would appear to just be like floating from under the dashboard. I like that. Any questions? I think I could live with that. So our steering wheel is here. That dimension, again, we don't know what this end result is because this is a deep dish wheel. But we do know that our mount is going to be there. And I don't see the Zephyr wheel getting any closer to the dashboard. So let's do this. I like it. So from the top, maybe I'll have one little spear this way too, but let's start off with this on the bench and we'll try to give it a fold. Maybe we won't make this out of like anything super heavy. I have some 1/8 inch plate or maybe even lighter. All right, it's a pretty substantial plate, but I think we're gonna work with this. So let's just set this up. Right, we have close center. We're gonna work on that, coming right out. And I'm just gonna flip that. Yeah. Maybe it's even, symmetrical. Yeah, I like that. Cool. Yeah, that's where if I had a bandsaw, it would really add up, but. Yeah, that looks nice and clean. I'm not gonna finish off this top end or the closer to me end until it's bent and welded. So let's try to put a bend in it. It's too small. That should do it. So it's not a hard bend on it. Just puts a little radius in. So this is it. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Or I could do it this way. That's the way I initially had it. Now I like it wrapping down like this. Yeah. Go to there, and then I can support that bottom. Alright, so this camera angle doesn't really show much in how curved this is, looking at it from where you are, but it's curved. I think I'm gonna piece in these sections here. Here's a little side view of how this is starting to add up. We're just going for some structure and an overall aesthetic. All right, so we're looking at this area here, and we're looking at that. It's a little bit strange. What if we were to just put a piece of paper on here? Just kind of gauge what that'll do. Ooh, I like that. That changes everything. Yup, there it is. Sometimes that's all it is. Oh yeah, that's cool. You know, you got that curb appeal, right? You're looking in from the door, and you don't want it to be, we're not trying to make it like super flashy, but we don't want it to look like we forgot something. So we're gonna trace there. I'm tracing in underneath this tube. Yeah, and we're working with something like that. And this is gonna come just out like that. I'm gonna cut a piece of 20 gauge steel and attach this just like that. Boom, but I'm gonna make that corner nicer. Right there. Yeah. We'll figure out that later. Okay, so I got this piece of steel and we're gonna curve it in a way that this cardboard was representing. Just start this. And I'm just gonna hit it with a rubber hammer, try to curve it out. I was told an interesting story when I was working in the art foundry making sculptures. My mentor at the time, again, not car guy, metal smith, he said one of the older guys finishing the sculptures, putting a texture in it, etc. He said he walked up to the guy, and I guess he spoke a little English. He was from France or something. So he's got this sculpture and, you know, whatever, figure perched on a rock. And he's literally taking this big stone and bashing it into the bronze and hitting with a hammer and like crushing the rock onto this sculpture. The guy's like, "What are you doing?" And, you know, in his broken English, he said, I'm giving the sculpture the stone. I'm giving it the feeling of what I'm doing. And I always leave a lot open to interpretation, keeping that story in mind. What I'm getting at is with this. I mentioned I didn't want a hard break line that you see. When I say break line, I mean, you know, a hard fold like you'd see from the sheet metal break. So with this also, you know, I'm trying to remember, it was in the car like this, right? So I could put it through the roller, I could put it through any machine, but to impart that sort of sculpted feel and a little bit of like uncertainty as to what's gonna happen, it's like, well, I want it to be a soft bend, right? So why not just set it up like this in a V and hit it with a soft hammer and just see what happens? Because I'm not trying for any end result. I'm just trying to see what comes about it. And I've done so much building, you know, off camera like this. Where it's like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna get. Just put a bend in it, and you could not create that with any machine. That's totally random. That's what I was going for, that random. It's a pretty small aspect in this big project. I feel like it's worth explaining. Like, that's where my head's at. So yeah, it's an indirect way to achieve a result. Sort of the unknown. Yeah, so see, we want to bend that. See, we want to push that center in a lot bit more. So let's do that. Let's bring it over to the table and just bash that. You know, we want a lot more out of this valley here. So we'll just set it up like that. Just like we were doing with the English wheel. Sometimes it gets all folded up. It's just metal, you can push it back. We're not trying to go in the finish on one shot. Yeah, right? So we got that. That's cool. And then I could push this out as we weld it. Let's set it up and do that. It's gonna be pretty cramped corners. And again, I have this radius edge coming down. I think I'm gonna set this below. Just try to bring that in. That way when I grind it, it'll look a little nicer. This area here is a little bit off, it's rising up. I'm gonna take the disc, cut that through. Yeah, so I'll just go under, just like that. Under here, pliers, and I'm going to try to twist this sheet metal up against that tube, pull this in, that way that'll offer a lot of support. Two ends right about here. I'm going to put a clamp on that and tack it. We're going to have to figure out how to finish this, and then that. Alright, so this isn't really doing anything. This isn't attaching to anything at all. So I'm just going to try to pinch it in and see what kind of shape it offers. snips and round this up. That's gonna go right up into the steering column like that. I'm gonna take the snips and cut this through. I'm gonna bring that right up to the dashboard, fill that. We look at the angle of the steering wheel once more, because now we're starting to commit to where that's gonna be angle-wise. You can see how this is really gonna spread out the structure of that column mount. And I'm gonna go ahead and really start welding into this to heat it up and curve it. Now the same thing, we're going to want this to reverse right up into the dashboard. That's very hot, but we might be able to make that happen. So, little paper fire never hurt nobody. Yeah, plug it right in there, just like that. I'm going to push that in there and use a very thin piece of steel, 20 gauge or less, I'm assuming. Just tracing that dashboard top. And again, with this weld and the way it's set up, I'm gonna really round that off. So it'll look, sort of faceted, but I think it's, it's not overstated. Coming in at the bottom. I'm gonna do this. And then I'm gonna come in back here and trace that right up. Pretty oddball piece of steel. Gonna add up in the end, just like that. And then over here, I want this to be as discreet as possible. That's gonna get blended out. I'm gonna go cut this out of something thin. It's pretty much the thinnest stuff I have laying around, but to curve that's gonna be difficult. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a piece of solid rod and I'm gonna bend it first, then trim it. So I have this piece of solid steel rod. And then just to say, we're gonna want to grab onto this somewhere. To bend it, we're gonna need leverage. So just put that right through here. Set this on the edge of the table and clamp it. All right, we got this in place. Got a good lock on it. And I know we're at more than a 90-degree bend on that. We're like way, way over. So I'm gonna fold this more than we need to and then set it in the car and check it. Probably could hammer this, but let's just try to do it by hand. That's what we're doing all along. Now we're gonna need this. That's definitely over the top from where we need it. But now I'm just gonna take this and wrap it. And by wrapping it, it'll be oversized, but we can always trim it back. All right, so we got something of similar to what we had. Yeah. All right, so what we're doing with this piece, yeah, see, we were folded way over. So I don't think I was super off with that sheet metal bend. Yeah. See, I got that tightened right up. Nice, that'll work. So this is gonna determine, we're gonna pinch this a little bit more. Check that on there. So we are close, but we're gonna open this and we're gonna pinch that down. Since I got some pinchers, let's just do it. easier to open the sheet metal up while you're working it than it is to close it. So I'm gonna just hammer this on the bench. One sec. All right, so looking at this, you can see we're definitely able to trim this way back. We're gonna want to get in there with a grinder to finish it, but we don't want like a huge stacked, we don't want a huge stacked piece of steel presentation. So yeah, look at that, that's cool. I like it. So I'm gonna twist this down. I'll weld the bottom first, and I'm gonna work the top right up into shape. Alright, so I'm just pushing this up, get it into the dashboard range. Yeah, that'll be cool like that. Now we're going to want this to match up with that rod back down here. So I'm going to trim this off, probably with the disc. Hit down on that because we're locked to the dashboard, which is cool. Yeah, maybe I'm gonna put a little relief slice right there. Yeah, that's the answer. Oops, that's not the answer. Bring this back out. I want to pull this down. I'm going to open this up just a little bit more. I think it's just too tight. There it is. Yep. I got that hit. I'm going to lock that with a weld. Sometimes these little things take a ton of effort. See what this is offering again is that unique sculpted look. Now this is one of the cool things about this welder. I see that big gap right there? I'm gonna turn this thing down. So I got this welder turned right down. It's gonna fill that whole thing. Really no chance of warping here, so. Yeah, this inverter welder works wonderfully for that. So, got a bit more strength. I'll still be able to twist this a little bit before I lock it in once I find the original steering wheel. Just gonna hit this, put a nice wrap weld on that. We're gonna go into time lapse. I'm gonna clean this up for the finish. right, so after some grinding and sanding, that's what we end up with. I'm not gonna do the other side just yet, because if I do need to just grab this and bend it, it's still a bit posable. But that's pretty much what I was going for, kind of like the rear shock mounts, where it looks sculpted, it's not overly done, and it's just gonna blend into the dashboard. All right, so that's a good start. One Zephyr steering column on the way to completion. I'll do the other half and then probably just send some pictures on the socials, but yeah, you got that kind of sculpted look, not overstated, just happening. Get pretty dirty sanding in that car. I need a bath. Thanks, see you next time.